on OTB AM. Here's what's coming up for you a little bit later on. What are we calling this roundup at 8 o'clock? We normally do our top 5 at 8 o'clock. This isn't the top 5, but it kind of is. What is it, Owen?
The lockdown latest.
Lockdown latest. I like it.
The lockdown lowdown.
Lockdown lowdown. Maybe we should get Ronan Mullen to work on the title for that one. Philly McMahon, the Dublin footballer, who is, of course, a gym owner, is going to talk to us at 8:15. We'll talk to him about how his business is getting on. He also had some very interesting stuff to say about people who are struggling with drug addiction and how this lockdown is going to affect them. Off the Couch at 8:35, this is our new feature where we're helping our listeners and users and watchers to do stuff from home to try and get fit or to stay fit. Robbie Cannon is on today. TJ Doherty, the boxer, has been speaking with Will O'Callaghan about what life is like down under. Miriam Malone's going to join us at 9 o'clock. And then what's this Dream Team crap at 9:05 on?
It is the greatest television show ever made, being brought to you on all our social platforms. Off the Ball viewers and listeners are extremely lucky that we've drafted in Colin Buig of offtheball.com to kind of bestow us with a bit of wisdom that he has. He's a veteran watcher of the television show. He's going to be going through his top 10 Harchester United players at some point on the site this week, so he's giving us a sneak peek at this. Also, I just wanted somebody to talk to about it. I just wanted somebody to, if you've shoveled yourself into a cave this dark, you need to expend some energy speaking about this dark cave, and that is my Dream Team experience. And thankfully, Colin Buig has allowed me to vent. And vent I did, and that piece will be going out after 9 o'clock.
Once you said you just needed somebody to talk to about it on, I'm all on board. I'm looking forward to that. So that's 9:05 this morning. Here's what's coming on. Here's what's happening in the world of sport. The GAA are likely to reveal their tentative plans for the coming months later on today. We're expecting a statement. There's differing reports about what the future for the Allianz Football League is going to be. Conor McKeown in the Herald and the Independent this morning is reporting that he thinks that there might be some room for the Allianz League fixtures to be maintained as a championship warm-up. So we'll see exactly what happens. There is an expectation that the Tier 2 Tailteann Cup could be deferred for a year if they opt for straight knockout football championship. And one of the papers has done a winners and losers if the league is cancelled. Meath footballers, big winners. Fermanagh footballers, big winners, obviously, because relegation won't happen and there'll be another opportunity for those teams to take this year's experience and stay in Division 1. But if the league finishes, then they could start the Tailteann Cup next year with those teams already decided who's going to be in that. So quite a lot riding in this, Owen.
Quite a lot. You didn't mention Mayo there as well.
As big winners.
Huge. As big losers. Oh, sorry, big winners if it's called
deferred,
off. Yeah. So I would have thought that they are the ones who are walking the tightrope in the most dramatic fashion, because of course they haven't got relegated in over 20 years at this point. The longest stint in Division 1, perhaps never got relegated from Division 1 in recent times. So it's a big one for them. With regards to the Tailteann Cup, I'd be surprised if that does go ahead this year, to be honest. I think.
Could you take everybody who gets beaten in the first round and put them into the Tailteann Cup, so you're running a parallel thing and those Tier 2 teams actually get an opportunity to play more football? Think how hungry we're going to be for inter-county football, for anything, later on this year. And say it's August and everything is back to some form of normality and we're allowed to congregate again. There's some herd immunity has been built up and it's safe for us all to do so. Something happens, some miracle happens, right? And you're Kildare and you're drawn against Meath in the first round of the championship. One of those two teams is gone for the entire year. I would, as a Kildare supporter, happily watch them play the next week against anybody, irrespective of whether or not they won or lost the previous week.
So what you could do is you could get all the current Division 1 and 2 teams in one pot and all the Division 3 and 4 teams in the other pot. Open draw for round 1, and then the losers go into the Tailteann Cup, or is round 1 just this absolute slaughterfest then, or what do you think?
I mean, the slaughterfest would be great, wouldn't it? March Madness, essentially. Like brackets, fantasy, yeah. No fantasy, you can't have fantasy, but certainly we're all doing brackets, we're printing them off, we're trying to decide exactly once that draw is made. That would be amazing. So, and it's first team out, home venue, irrespective of health and safety. So Newbridge are nowhere, Netwatch, Cullen Park, the Dubs coming down again. I mean, obviously they've been there in recent years. Didn't end greatly for them. There was a minor incident in that game. But that could be fairly cool, couldn't it?
It's not a bad shout. I always love the idea of potentially getting some sort of March Madness-esque mood going in the GAA, but it always seems so impossible to do it because people are working. You can't actually have this sort of daily thing. The only thing I ever saw as a real possibility for was something like the Sigerson or Fitzgibbon Cup, where the students could go out and play in the evening time.
Play midweek and midweek afternoons.
Does this create some sort of extraordinary circumstance where the country is just getting back to its feet and employers are like, right, go on, entertain the country and go out and play our game on a Wednesday night, take a half day, and it's only going to happen once or twice. Yeah, exactly. And even if it's only like one game on a Monday and one on a Tuesday, and then come Friday, you've got a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, you've got a more intense schedule. Perhaps that could be something. But like it's something I've always thought about, this possibility of, once the evenings are long, that wouldn't it be so cool to have just a constant stream of GAA during the week, and even when the nights aren't long, like under lights and stuff like that, there's always fantastic football games. And like I always thought that the colleges, like there's the obvious comparison with America with March Madness with the colleges, but it seemed to only be the only logistical reason, the logistical possibility of doing it. But perhaps there is the slight semblance of an opportunity here for the GAA to be really creative when this thing comes back.
All right. The IOC President Thomas Bach says the Tokyo Olympics can act as a light at the end of the tunnel. They're going to keep the Olympic flame burning. Coronavirus pandemic has led to this summer's games being postponed until next summer at the latest. Next year's World Athletics Championships in Oregon looks like it's going to be moved to 2022. As a result, it's the first time in history an Olympic Games has been postponed. In racing, the Irish Grand National Festival at Fairyhouse has been cancelled. This follows the government directive yesterday that all sports still ongoing, including those behind closed doors, be suspended. The measure will remain in place until April the 19th at the very latest. Pep Guardiola has made a €1 million contribution to the fight against coronavirus in his native Spain. The Manchester City manager is currently in Barcelona and has donated the sum to the Medical College of Barcelona and the Angel Soler Daniel Foundation. So that's your headlines from the sports pages. If you want to get in touch with us, you can text the show on WhatsApp 087 918 180. You can send us whatever messages or pictures that way as well. Of course, you can always get us using the hashtag OTB AM, or you can get us on Twitter at Off The Ball. It's time for the sports pages.
OTB AM.
Okay, so I am going to start with the Irish Independent. I'm going to start with offtheball.com. Yeah, good call. You'll never be able to run again. Tom Parsons coming back from the brink. This is the amazing story. Tom Parsons did an in-depth interview with Joe Malloy last night, and we've written up parts of that story. Of course, you can watch the full thing. You can listen to the full thing on the OTB Podcast Network. Just subscribe to OTB Highlights and OTB GAA, and you'll get all of our GAA feed there, wherever you get your podcast. Best place is the Go Loud app. And then also, Paddy Agnew talking about life in Bergamo, a biological bomb. Paddy Agnew, always unbelievably thoughtful and just a brilliant journalist over 4 or 5 decades at this point, and a regular on the football show, talking about what life in Italy is like at the moment. And one of the terrible things that we're seeing at the moment is that the curve in New York is the same as the curve as it was in Lombardy, and the curve in London fairly similar as well. So we haven't quite seen the worst of this on a global level just yet either. Paul Rouse started a brilliant new series of lectures, Men Walked on the Moon Before Women Played in Croke Park, which he's going to join us every Tuesday night for a history of Irish sport over the next 10 weeks, giving you access to the type of stuff that you only normally get if you're actually one of his students. So phenomenal stuff, really interesting, fully formed history of Irish sport. And Michael Conlon talking about the difficulty that we're all having of explaining to our kids. His daughter was 5 and she couldn't see her grandparents, but it turns out everybody's having exactly the same experiences all around the world at the moment, talking about his kids not seeing their parents and grandkids. And then today is the day that the kids take over Off the Ball. Brian O'Driscoll is our first up, so people have been sending us in questions by video. 087 918 180 is the WhatsApp number to send your stuff to, and we're going to put those questions to Brian O'Driscoll today. We're going to do this with a bunch of other people over the next while, so if your kids have anybody that they would like to ask any questions of, then drop us a line, get in touch, and we'll put them to whatever superstar you want us to put them to, starting off with Brian O'Driscoll. Now, the Irish Independent for you this morning. Their back page headline: Racing should not be painted as bad boys in crisis, O'Leary. Is this Eddie? It is Eddie, yeah. So Gigginstown House stud racing manager Eddie O'Leary has offered a stern rebuttal to those claiming that the racing community should be treated as the bad boys after Irish Action lost its battle with the coronavirus pandemic and was cancelled until April 19th at the earliest. This is Michael Verney's story. O'Leary has questioned the narrative and feels that the racing industry has been painted in an unfair light. It's wrong to try and nail racing as the bad boys. It was completely with government approval that racing went ahead behind closed doors. It is an attempt to keep an awful lot of rural jobs going. Everyone's saying that all of the Irish people that went to Cheltenham shouldn't have gone. The world was a very different place before then and everything was open. People don't seem to realise there was a Champions League match in Liverpool last week and there were thousands of Irish people there as well. Not to mention thousands of people from Madrid, which is now one of the epicentres of the coronavirus pandemic in Europe as well, who were standing in Anfield that night as well. And then Zebo set to extend Racing 92 stay. This, I think, is a story based on what we were talking about with him on Off the Ball. Yeah, it is, totally, yeah. So he was on, was it Monday night, Tuesday night? I can't remember the nights these days. Monday night, he was talking about having another year, an option on his contract to stay another year, and it looks like he's going to take it up. So also, apparently, Curtly Beale close to agreeing terms with Racing 92. And Sport Ireland vows to maintain athletes' funding. Again, this is the type of move that is really important, where people are given the sense of security that they need. So a great picture of Phil Healy and Curragh Clough. That's how you maintain social distancing on the beach. Like, no one around you. This is the type of leadership that we need from our athletes, as opposed to everybody else kind of out there strolling and meeting their mates and breathing their corona fumes all over each other. But Sport Ireland have said that they're going to maintain the athletes' funding all the way through to the Olympic cycle, as opposed to making everybody apply for it again, as would have been the case. It's obviously difficult and expensive for Sport Ireland to do, but it's completely the right move.
Absolutely it is. Let's have a look at the Irish Times this morning. Tokyo 2020 postponement creates a sporting backlog unlike no other, writes Reardon. And as you mentioned there is no immediate threat to funding, says Sport Ireland. You've also got a collection of quotes from all the different athletes affected by yesterday's news, from Leona Maguire to Shane Lowry, Thomas Barr, Kelly Mullen, Rhys McClenaghan, and a few other athletes there as well. I played hard and party hard. I had to change. They're carrying Donald McRae's interview with Rory Best as well in the Irish Times this morning.
Yeah. They also have some words from Philip Brown, the Chief Executive of the IRFU. Organisation is in the black for now, but we're burning up a lot of cash. If it was going to start in September, well, that's fine. We have a clear line of sight and we can manage that. If we get to September and there's no clear line of sight, well, then we've got a problem. Obviously, the IRFU made a lot of money last year, so of all the sports organisations, they're in particularly good stead. And then Sean Moore has a piece there saying that GAA are going to get to grips with their 2020 season and whether or not it has a future at the moment. The EPCR have also committed to staging their finals in Marseille. Those games have officially are about to be officially cancelled, we understand, today as well. The Examiner this morning: the GAA has survived wars, economic crashes, political instability, and it will survive this. This, I think, is Tracy Kennedy. It is, yeah. So it's a column that she's written for the Examiner this morning. Obviously, the chairperson of the Cork County Board. A difficult time for anybody to be chairperson of Cork County Board. This John Fogarty story here is different from Conor McKeown's story, so we'll see a little bit later on today. GAA set to pull plug on league after sports ban extended until April 19th. He's making the point that the LGFA yesterday announced that with just one round of the Lidl National Leagues, they've chosen to annul the competition for this season. Difficulty for the GAA is that abandoning the league will have a knock-on impact for the Tailteann Cup as well, and so it'll be interesting to see exactly what they do there. And I didn't realise it, but it's 5 years to the day since Henry Shefflin retired officially in Langtons. So what year? 2015. Obviously in March. He obviously had some intention of trying to see how it would go in 2015 to see if he could get back on the team. Yeah,
and obviously pulled the plug on it at that point. I don't recall it being this late in the season actually. But I do remember it being Langton's all right, an iconic place to retire for any Kilkenny hurler. The back page of the Irish Daily Star this morning is Back to the Future, a picture there as well. Seamus Moynihan lifting Sam Maguire in 2000, the last year that he would have had a knockout football championship. GAA favour a knockout championship, Super 8s parked back door if there's time, writes Carl O'Kane. So he's leaning towards the idea that there will be a straight knockout championship. Maldini's anger at decision. Meanwhile, Italy legend Paolo Maldini, who of course contracted coronavirus, says that the decision to play Liverpool against Atletico Madrid in Anfield this month was madness. We've got Freeze Flame, that's the headline on the Tokyo Olympics, and that picture there as well of Phil Healy on Kerry Beach. You're either going to waste that time now or you're going to use it, she says.
Yeah. Seamus Moynihan with the hair. Kerry's most underrated ever footballer?
Oh, I'm not sure if he's underrated.
Still underrated?
I think with every passing year and without, I think the position of fullback has been hard to play generally over the last few years. But I think if you could take one player back from the past and put him into the Kerry team,
you can't. No, because that's just based on current needs. Like that's just currently we don't have a player like that. So like
I think even I think. I would say I've never seen anybody who could read the game of football as well as Seamus Moynihan in any position.
Tell me, is he on your Mount Rushmore of Kerry footballers?
No.
Underrated.
But like, is he a top
he's
four?
The greatest reader. He's the greatest reader of a game you've ever seen, and you're like, nah, I don't. Vision's not important. Reading's not important. I want point scoring and goal scoring. That's what you want.
Yeah, of course. Like
you're a hypocrite. You're a hypocrite, Sheehan.
I'm cheap. You can sell me with your dummies and your stats.
So who have you got? Come on. Like, let's just do it from when you've been alive, so you don't have to put people who you never actually saw.
Gooch and Maurice Fitz, David Clifford.
David Clifford already?
Possibly.
Come on, you can't.
Away.
You can't. That's too early. That's too much pressure on his. Like the greatest Kerry footballers.
You know what? I think Moynihan actually might make it in terms of footballers that I've seen. So I would actually say that he would almost be number 3. Like if I'm talking very personally here, Gooch, Maurice Fitz, Seamus Moynihan, and I always, like, a lot of people say he's not even the best of the O'Sheas, but I've always pointed out Darragh O'Shea as one of the best I've ever seen. And it's just, again, it might be based on a little bit of recency bias where he was such a huge loss when he was gone. But like if you, off the top of my head, I know I would change this if I thought about it longer. I'll go Darragh O'Shea, Seamus Moynihan, Maurice Fitz, and Colin Cooper. Well, my favourite. They're the ones that I would feel most strongly about for my Mount Rushmore.
Right. So Moynihan does.
Clifford's getting there,
and he's going to knock Moynihan off.
He would knock Darragh O'Shea off. Right,
so I've bullied you into picking Moynihan because you said you wouldn't, and then you changed your mind.
I've got a huge soft spot for Seamus Moynihan. I think he's certainly one of my favourites. But maybe you're right. Maybe if you asked a lot of people to pick their Mount Rushmore, maybe he actually wouldn't make it, and maybe he is underrated by people. For me, though, absolutely not. I think he's unbelievable, absolutely unbelievable. You can't say enough about the guy. Yeah,
and I would agree with you. I actually think that. When we start coming down to these types of debates, you're going to end up having the hard-running halfback who kicks a few points. For whatever reason, there's a bias. There's like a point-scoring bias. Moynihan didn't really end up scoring that many points, I'd say, in his career. Maybe a few when he played at midfield for a while, but not many. And so we are like, oh, well, defensive stuff, not really that important. I still think Aidan O'Mahony's job on... Michael Murphy is one of the most underrated things that's ever happened in Gaelic football, where like you win in All-Ireland because there's a bad kick out, but actually you win it because the main protagonist and the opposition is taken out of his comfort zone for the duration of the game by a very selfless performance, and we don't value that at all in GAA culture. We're kind of constantly going, no, I want a few points, how many possessions did you have? What did you do with that possession? It's like, well, like there's also destroying the heart, ripping it out and feasting on it in front of everybody. That's an important job.
Definitely, and I think actually something that strengthens your point is when we think of the great defensive performances in recent years, we think of something like Lee Keegan. But what we actually remember from Lee Keegan is him scoring his goals, which obviously is part of a great defensive performance. But what did he do without the ball? That was also brilliant as well. And that's the reason why I say the All-Star Committee would have valued him highly for a number of years. Definitely, I think that it's the scoring the defenders at this moment, the likes of the Keegans, the likes of the McCaffreys, while they can be great defensively, you remember their goal scoring or their point scoring exploits far more than their defensive exploits. And maybe that does tie into the whole Moynihan thing of him being a great reader of the game, just not valued by us plebs who merely watch the game from the stands. But I think when you're as good as it as Moynihan was, I think you kind of have to admire it. He almost had a psychic ability to know where the ball was going to be or where the ball was going to land.
He's also somebody his teammates are always like, that guy, that's the guy, as opposed to, as you said, us plebs. We're gutted is the back page of the Mail this morning, but hockey stars support Tokyo decision. And last orders for Irish sport. That was a picture from the jockeys at Clonmel yesterday, observing social distancing and racing folds as long, empty summer beckons. Over Shane McGrath's piece there. It is going to be a long, empty summer, even if there was some sense of hope that we could be getting back to stuff sooner rather than later. That would be good. And what have you got next?
The Mirror, it is hope to the world. That is their big headline. Japanese organisers to keep the Olympic flame lit for a year as a beacon of light in dark times. You know the way that there's like been loads of maps doing the rounds of everybody's carbon footprint having reduced over the last couple of weeks. There's just going to be one little dot in Japan that is still going to be burning bright, and it might be the Olympic torch for the next year. Put it out and just relight it next year is what I say. GAA year could be wiped out, and now football faces a giant transfer window and a transfer free-for-all. This is one thing that Joe Conroy mentioned in one of our production meetings yesterday. This is something that doesn't sleep, transfers. These things are still very much happening. Scrolling through news earlier on, if you scroll through any Reddit threads, you're getting all your like viral coronavirus content, coronavirus footballer talks about it, and then you've got a lot of transfer stuff. These are the only things that are existing right now, coronavirus and transfers.
And we get to look at lists as well. The Mirror have Jermaine Genius is picking his midfield of the year, and he's gone for Henderson, Grealish, Kevin De Bruyne, James Maddison, Fred, Gini Wijnaldum, Adama Traore, and a couple of others as well. But there is a story here about how much Diego Simeone got paid last year. He is far and away the highest paid manager in world football. Do you know this figure? We've spoken about how much he's been paid in the past, but do you know how much he gets paid?
17 million?
36.2 million.
Oh, God, I'm getting it mixed up with the Jose fee. Holy, that is unbelievable. Yeah. And does anybody come anywhere close to him?
No. Conte is second on the list, right? Antonio Conte is second on the list, but that's just for last year because he has a salary from Inter of 18 million, which is exactly half what Diego Simeone gets, but he also had 9 million layered on from Chelsea. And then Guardiola's third. I don't know if Guardiola's figure. Mourinho and Zidane are fifth, joint, on 15 million a year. 36 million for Diego Simeone. It turns out he's actually worth it.
It's the Manchester United tax, isn't it? You get linked with Manchester United, you bump up your wages. Like, would he have been able to claim money like that had he left Atletico? Like, that is astonishing. Is there anybody else even as players in a sport at the moment that have that sort of gap on their peers? No. I don't think there is. No. Like, it's like I guess players' agents and stuff like that, they're always so successful in pointing out the other guy in the dressing room and they might be able to get themselves up. Maybe management is a little bit different. That is absurd. That is definitely one of the biggest anomalies, I think. Like, of course he's worth it when you look at what they've done. Like, I mean, you can spend 34 million quid on a player every summer in today's market and every second one might be a flop. But you've got a guaranteed sure thing with Diego Simeone as your manager. So, yeah, probably worth it, I think. Very,
very briefly, there was a story in the Irish Mirror there. Pat Nolan's been talking about Nicky Brennan. Nicky Brennan is worried that the entire year could be wiped out. The Racing Post next for me, the front page there, very straightforward. Now Irish racing falls to coronavirus. All sporting events off as government tighten restrictions. And that same picture of social distancing from Clonmel yesterday. And Moore can lead her rivals a merry dance. Most of the golfing schedule has been ravaged by the coronavirus, but some Arizona events have been going ahead. And another 3-round Cactus Tour shootout seems set to get the green light in the Grand Canyon State. So, come on down, Cactus Tour. Now is your time to shine. The Sun this morning, the Sun this morning, perhaps 1 million virus aid. He's given €1 million to help fight the coronavirus. It's about flaming time. This is Reece McLennan. I'll be set for Olympics 21. Sterling, I still love the cop. It's an interesting time to be batting your eyelids at Liverpool for Raheem Sterling. And we're off. Racing in Ireland has been binned after the government introduced new COVID-19 procedures in effect.
Let's look at the Irish news this morning. Varadkar announces ban on all sports until April 19th. Further doubt cast over completion of Allianz leagues, and racing authorities forced to abandon behind closed doors policy, and Conlon content that IOC have provided clarity over games. It is John Conlon who says, "I'm just happy they've made the decision and now we have a bit of clarity for when we need to prepare."
Right, it's 8:04 this morning here on Wednesday's OTB AM. We're going to keep repeating the day as much as for ourselves, I think, as for anything else. Just to remind ourselves that it is Wednesday. It's Wednesday, the 25th of March, here at 8:04.